Ralph Waldo Emerson was not interested in giving instructions for success. He was interested in shaping how a person thinks. Living in the 19th century, a period of rapid industrial, social, and intellectual change, Emerson questioned inherited beliefs about authority, conformity, religion, and the self. He believed that every individual carries an inner source of wisdom and that life is most fully lived when one learns to trust it. His essays and lectures didn't offer rigid systems. Instead, they encouraged independence of mind, attentiveness to experience, and responsibility for one's own becoming. Emerson wrote for people willing to think slowly, reflect deeply, and live deliberately. What makes his word endure is not optimism, but clarity. His ideas do not promise ease, they ask for awareness. They remind us that character is formed through daily choices, that understanding grows through experience, and that a meaningful life is shaped from within. Across generations, Emerson's words have continued to speak not because they offer answers, but because they sharpen the questions that matter. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Ralph Waldo Emerson was not interested in passive hope or blind optimism. His worldview centered on the inner life of the individual, on clarity, responsibility, and alignment between thought and action. He believed that reality responds not to wishes but to conviction. This quote is often misunderstood as mystical encouragement. What it truly describes is focus. When a decision is genuine, when it is not half made or diluted by doubt, the mind recognizes itself. Attention sharpens, priorities shift, you begin to notice opportunities that were previously invisible because you were undecided. In modern life, distraction weakens intention. We keep options open, postpone commitment, and call it flexibility. Emerson reminds us that movement begins only after choice. The world doesn't move for us, but once we move with clarity, resistance decreases, not because the universe is magical, but because our actions finally align in one direction. A hero is no braver than an ordinary man, but he is brave 5 minutes longer. This idea stripes heroism of mythology. It places courage firmly within reach of ordinary people. Bravery here is not a permanent trait. It is a moment extended slightly beyond comfort. Most people can endure fear briefly. What separates action from retreat is often a few additional minutes, minutes where discomfort is tolerated rather than escaped. Emerson is pointing to endurance, not intensity. In contemporary life, courage often appears in small, uncelebrated forms, staying in a difficult conversation, continuing work when motivation fades, holding to values when silence would be easier. These moments do not feel heroic while they happen. They feel uncomfortable, quiet, and lonely. Growth rarely demands grand acts. It asks for patience with fear just a little longer than we think we can manage. Happiness is a perfume you cannot pour on others without getting some on yourself. This is not a statement about forced positivity. It is an observation about human exchange. Emerson understood that inner states are contagious, but not in superficial ways. What we embody alters what we experience. When kindness is practiced deliberately, it reshapes the giver before it reaches the receiver. Attention moves outward, self absorption loosens, perspectives widens. In that shift, happiness appears not as a reward but as a byproduct. Modern culture often treats happiness as something to be obtained privately. optimized individually or displayed publicly. Emerson suggests the opposite direction. Happiness grows indirectly through engagement rather than pursuit. It cannot be hoarded. It must move, and in moving, it leaves a trace behind. Be yourself, no base imitator of another, but your best self. This is not a call to rebellion or self expression without discipline. Emerson's ideas of selfhood was demanding. To be oneself required honesty, efforts, and moral clarity. Imitation feels safe. It provides templates, approval, and shortcuts. But over time, it erodes inner authority. You begin to measure your worth against borrowed standards instead of internal principles. In a world shaped by comparisons, metrics, trends, and constant visibility, this message feels increasingly difficult. Being your best self is not about uniqueness for its own sake. It is about alignment between values and behavior. The work is internal, external validation may follow, but it cannot lead. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. This is the quiet culmination of Emerson's philosophy. Identity for him was not static, it was something defended daily against pressure, convenience, and fear. Modern life is efficient at shaping people. Algorithms suggest who to become. Institutions reward conformity. Social systems encourage performance over presence. In this environment, remaining grounded in one's own convictions becomes an act of resistance. This accomplishment doesn't announce itself. It shows up in choices that are consistent over time, in boundaries held without explanation, in paths chosen without applause. To be oneself fully and steadily is not dramatic. It is deliberate and it requires awareness more than confidence. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. This is a reminder that character is revealed through patterns, not declarations. Words are easy to shape, actions are slower, heavier, and harder to disguise. Emerson is pointing to coherence between intention and behavior. When action consistently contradicts speech, the mind of the observer trusts what is lived, not what is claimed. Over time, behavior becomes a kind of language, one that doesn't rely on persuasions. In modern life, where communication is constant and visibility is high, it is tempting to curate identity through words alone, but credibility is built quietly through repetitions. Small choices accumulate meaning, habits from reputations. Integrity is not announced, it is inferred. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. This is not advice for recklessness. It is a call to originality grounded in responsibility. Emerson believed that genuine progress rarely comes from imitation. New paths are created by those willing to think independently before acting boldly. Walking an established path offers predictability. Expectations are clear, risks are shared, but it also limits discovery. When no path exists, uncertainty replaces guidance. Decisions must be owned rather than borrowed. In modern terms, this might mean resisting conventional definition of success, choosing depth over speed, meaning over approval. The trail left behind is not always visible immediately, but it becomes useful later, often to people you will never meet. The only way to have a friend is to be one. This is a statement about reciprocity rooted in character, not strategy. Emerson rejects the idea of friendship as something to acquire. Instead, it is something to practice. Being a friend requires presence without transaction, listening without immediate response, loyalty without constant reward. These qualities cannot be demanded from others first, they must be embodied. In a time where relationships are often evaluated by usefulness or reach, these ideas feel countercultural. Yet it explains why many feel connected yet lonely. Depth cannot be optimized. Friendship grows where attention is given freely. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. This quote redirects attention inward without dismissing the past or future. Emerson is not denying experience or ambition. He is questioning where power truly resides. The past informs us, but it doesn't control us unless we allow it. The future motivates us, but it remains abstract. What shapes action is the present inner state, beliefs, fears, habits, or thought. Modern life often pulls attention outwards. Metrics, timelines, comparisons. Emerson reminds us that resilience and clarity are internal resources. When inner foundations are stable, external circumstances lose some of their authority. Strength begins as orientation, not circumstance. It is not the length of life, but depth of life. This reflection challenges a common assumption that time alone grants meaning. Emerson argues that life is not measured by duration but by engagement. Depth comes from attention, from presence, from moments lived fully rather than endured passively. A long life without reflection can remain shallow. A shorter life lived with awareness can feel complete. In modern culture, busyness often replaces depth. Days fills quickly but lightly. Emerson invites a different question, not how much we do, but how consciously we do it. Life expands where awareness deepens. Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. This statement acknowledges the limits of explanation. Some truth cannot be transferred through instruction or advice. They require time, experience, and often discomfort. Emerson is pointing to the difference between knowledge and understanding. Knowledge can be accumulated quickly, understanding arrives slowly, shaped by consequences and reflection. Certain lessons resist shortcuts because they depend on personal encounter. In modern life, we often try to learn without exposure. We seek summaries, frameworks, and predictions. While useful, they cannot replace lived experience. Growth emerges when theory meets reality and assumptions are tested. Understanding is earned through participation, not observation. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising up every time we fail. This is not praise for resilience as performance. It is a sober recognition that failure is unavoidable when one engages deeply with life. Emerson reframes failure as information rather than identity. The measure of a person is not their avoidance of error, but their relationship to it. Do they withdraw? Do they adjust and continue? In modern culture, failure is often hidden or dramatized. Both distort its meaning. Failure is usually quite incremental and instructional. Rising again doesn't require spectacle, it requires honesty. Progress belongs to those who remain in the process. Live in the sunshine, swim the sea, drink the wild air. This is not escapism. Emerson is not advocating withdrawal from responsibility, he is emphasizing vitality and openness to experience that keeps perceptions alive. Sunshine, sea, and air are symbols of direct engagement with life. They suggest movement, risk, and sensory presence. Emerson believed that stagnation dulls judgment and weakens spirit. In modern life, routines often narrow attention. Screen replace environment, schedules replace curiosity. This quote invites recalibration, not abandonment of structure, but reconnection with immediacy. A life fully felt remains mentally flexible. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. Here, enthusiasm doesn't mean constant excitement. Emerson understood it as commitment infused with energy, a belief strong enough to sustain effort over time. Great work rarely unfolds smoothly. It demands repetition, patience, and tolerance for uncertainty. Without enthusiasm, these demands feel burdensome. With it, they become meaningful. In modern context, enthusiasm is often mistaken for motivation spikes, but Emerson points towards something steadier, a quiet intensity that survives difficulty. Achievement follows where attention and energy persist together. Life is a journey, not a destination. This is not a dismissal of goals, it is a warning against postponing life until outcomes arrives. Emerson is emphasizing process over arrival. When meaning is tied only to endpoints, the present becomes instrumental, something to endure rather than inhabit. Life then feels perpetually unfinished. In modern culture, achievement is often framed as accumulation, more milestone, more validations. Emerson invites a different orientation, one where growth is experienced along the way, not deferred. The journey shapes the traveler more than the destination ever could. Write in your heart that every day is the best day in the year. This is not an instruction to deny difficulty. Emerson is not suggesting that all days are equally pleasant. He is addressing orientation rather than circumstance. To treat each day as significant is to meet it with presence. It remains refusing to postpone attention until conditions improve. When value is assigned only to exceptional moments, most of life is dismissed as preparation. In modern life, anticipation often overshadows experience. We wait for better timing, greater freedom, or ideal conditions. Emerson reminds us that meaning is not scheduled, it emerges through engagement with what is already here. The day becomes meaningful when it is fully entered. Skill to do comes of doing. This statement removes mystery from mastery. Skill is not bestowed, it is built. Emerson is emphasizing process over talent. Competence grows through repetition, error, and adjustment. Waiting for readiness delays learning. Action, even imperfect, creates feedback that thinking alone cannot supply. In contemporary culture, preparation is often endless. We seek certainty before beginning, but clarity follows movement, not the reverse. Doing reveals what is missing and what is possible. Skill is not a prerequisite, it is a result. The year teach much which the days never know. This is an observation about time and perspective. Certain insights cannot be rushed. They require accumulation of experience, context, and reflection. Daily events feel immediate and intense. Over time, patterns emerge. What once seemed urgent becomes instructive. What felt permanent reveals its transience. Modern life compresses time. We expect rapid understanding and immediate resolution. Emerson reminds us that wisdom unfolds slowly. Some lessons arrive only after repetition has softened resistance. Patience with times allows meaning to settle. A great man is always willing to be little. Here, greatness is redefined. It is not dominance or recognition, it is flexibility. Emerson is pointing to humility as strength, the willingness to be corrected, to listen, to remain a learner. Those who cling to status or certainty stops growing. In modern context, image is often protected at the expense of truth. Admitting uncertainty feels risky, yet real growth requires openness. Being little allows space for learning. Greatness endures where ego relaxes. Every artist was first an amateur. This reflection honors beginnings. It removes shame from inexperience. Emerson acknowledges that creation starts before competence. The amateur is not defined by lack but by engagement. Without permission, without mastery, the work begins. In modern culture, visibility discourages experimentation. Fear of judgment delays action. Emerson reframes the starting point as universal. No one arrives fully formed. Growth depends on allowing oneself to begin imperfectly. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decided to be. This reflection brings Emerson's thought back to responsibility, not as pressure but as agency. Destiny in this sense is not imposed, it is shaped gradually through choices repeated over time. Emerson is not denying circumstance, limitations, or chance. He is pointing to something quieter and more consistent. Within any situation, there remains the ability to choose orientation, how to respond, what to value, and what to practice. In modern life, it is easy to attribute identity to background, labels, or expectations. Emerson suggests that becoming is an ongoing act, not a fixed outcome. Each decision reinforces a direction even when progress feels slow or unseen. What we become is rarely decided all at once. It is chosen daily in small, almost forgettable ways. And in that steady choosing, a life takes